Today is yoga for anxiety. We are going to work on ways to think about the whole body, the whole human experience, rather than being just stuck in the head and the thoughts, the cognitive head, the thinking mind. We're going to start seated today. So a lot of people sit crisscross, sit in an easy seat position. If this is not your most comfortable seated position, we're going to be here for a little bit. So find a way to find a comfortable seat that works for you. So I like to be up on my knees, using a block for my hips. So come to a seated position, and if you want to use a chair, use a chair. Go ahead. Be comfortable in your seat. I'm gonna have to go turn my phone off. Excuse me. Sorry about that. So find a way to get into a comfortable seat. Start to land in your seat. So wiggle around, notice what is present physically. Adjust and get comfortable. See if you can find both hips. Wiggle left and right. See if you're putting more weight on one side than the other. Notice if there's anything present in the lower back. Notice if there's anything present in the shoulders. Maybe even moving the neck around, the head around. Just starting to feel what is present physically, noticing. And then land in your seat and take in your environment. So open up your eyes and look around. Notice where you're at. Notice what is in your environment. So really checking in, seeing what is present, noticing where you are at right now. And notice what the mind does when you look around. Do you notice things that should or should not be there, or make notes? Oh, I should dust that later. Notice. See if you can just notice without labeling where you are. Can you do that? Just experience where you are. As if you've just walked into this space. You've never been here before. And it's all new. Notice that that's probably very hard to do. And then close your eyes and start to soften into yourself. So notice what is present inside. Notice how your breath is today. And then check in on the thinking mind, the cognitive head. What are the thought patterns today? When we check in, rather than labeling, I'm thinking about this particular thing, or I'm thinking about fear, or I'm worrying, or the to-do, just notice. See if you can just start to draw away from labeling and describing, and just notice what is there. as if you're starting to see the thoughts in your head and draw your attention away from the tangle of them and look back up. And then bring all of your awareness to your breath and notice what happens when you start to think about your breath. Notice if you bring in muscular tension when you start to think about your breath. Notice if you start to force whatever breath practice you've been told is the right practice. And then see if you can just observe what is naturally present today. See if you can see if there are any natural pauses that are happening. See if the breath is slow or fast. Noticing perhaps some are slow and some are faster. And then we're going to work intentionally with the breath, trying to let go of the concept of this being the right way to breathe, but just to work with the breath in particular patterns and have an experience. See what happens to your being when you try to work with the breath intentionally. And let go of the idea that there are right or wrong answers, just experiences. So we're going to think about the breath as a wave. So we're going to try and make it a long, slow wave with a little pause at the end. So we're going to try and breathe in as slow as we possibly can without force. So just letting the breath come in slow as we can. Slow, slow, slow. And then maybe even a little bit slower, we let the breath roll out without muscular force. We're just rolling it in as if we're trying to feel every part of our lungs as the breath goes in, and then every part of our lungs as the breath goes out. And then just a very gentle pause, as if creating a rhythm, a little pause, and then in again, out again even slower. Little pause. Think about it as a wave or a roll, a flow. So that pause is not a grasp or a force, but just an experience of all the breath out of the body, and see how it feels when there's no air in the lungs. And then let go of all feelings and thoughts about your breath and land your focus in the body wherever it's drawn to. Pause here and notice what is present. And then we'll start to move and breathe with our breath. So inhaling, lifting arms up overhead, and exhaling, lowering. And if you want to continue adding that gentle pause, go ahead. Inhale, lift, and exhale, lower. Perhaps even thinking of your arms as pressing the breath out of the body nice and slow and gentle, and then giving a little push further as you hold a little. Inhale, open up. Let the breath come in. Exhale, gentle push out. And then return the hands to your lap. And we'll begin to work with the head. So start to think about the neck getting longer, 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 growing through the crown of the head. And we're going to take little tiny tilts of ear to shoulder, just kind of noticing what is present on either side of the neck. Nice and slow. Take some movement around. Feel your neck, feel the muscles of your neck. Notice what you do in your shoulders. Notice if you're cramping or gripping around the chest. And then take a slightly bigger movement, take an ear towards the shoulder. And play with the opposite arms. You can press the opposite arm down into your lap, or you can lock it behind you by taking the hand palm backwards. Press the back of the hand into the hip. And then press like you're pressing the shoulder down. Notice what is present in the neck. And then bring it back to neutral. Notice left and right sides. And then take the ear over to the other shoulder and play with where you place the arm. Breathe. Bring the head back to neutral. Roll the shoulders all the way forward. So really pull the shoulders forward and push the sternum backwards. Roll. Try not to take this into the lower back. Really pull with the shoulders. So you're opening up across the back of the shoulders and really pulling the chest. So you're trying to pull your shoulders in as much as you possibly can. Think about the worst posture you can possibly have. Think about this protective shape that we often draw ourselves into when we're stressed. Pull, 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 and feel this. And then pull, 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 slowly back, open up. So now we're gonna squeeze our shoulder blades together and pull the shoulders open in the front of the chest. So we're trying to open up these chest muscles. Experience the opposite. So this isn't necessarily the best posture either, but the opposite of drawing in, the opposite of folding down and cramping into the sense of gravity and time. Breathe. And then find neutral. See how that feels. Pull one shoulder up at a time, nice and slow. Moving with your breath. And we're going to start to think about the rib cage space, nice and side bodies opening. So rather than crunching one side to open up the other, we're just going to lift as if we're lifting from the armpit and sending the one side longer and a little tilt on the other side back to neutral, and then go over to the other side. So really thinking about pulling, 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 opening up either side of the body, small movement. Go back and forth, start to move with the breath. Inhale, center, exhale, pull the rib cage open. Bring it back to center, and we're going to start to take little soft spirals with the rib cage. So think about moving from the sternum right in the center of the chest. Little small soft spirals. And as we move throughout practice today, we're going to think about trying to find small muscle groups and small movements. And if we're not paying attention, switch the direction of your circles. We're going to find ways to injure ourselves. If we don't remain on the mat, we're not going to have that physical experience. So we're going to practice being super, super focused in an physical experience and noticing when our mind is pulling us away, pulling us into that to-do list, pulling us into somewhere else instead of present moment, bring it back to neutral. We're going to work the hands, open up the hands. So spread the fingers super, super, super wide. And then make a claw, a fist, slow from wide to fist. And we're going to push the fists away. So move, push the fists away. Notice which muscles do this in the arms and shoulders. And then we're slowly going to pull as if we're trying to pull the upper arm back into the shoulders without letting the shoulders move. So this is a teeny tiny movement, teeny tiny. See if you can feel like you're pulling the arm back into the shoulder socket. See which muscles fire up. And notice which other muscles want to do all the work. So you might have the back firing up, you might have the neck firing up. So push forward, pull back. Small movement through the shoulders. When we start to isolate and move really slow, you might find this really difficult. And then bring the arms out wide. And we're going to do the same thing. We're going to try and move the hands away from us and then draw them back without moving the shoulder blades in the back. So we want to pull foot back. It's a teeny movement. Push away. Pull back. Push away. See which muscles make this movement happen. Notice the low back. Notice if you're pressing into feet or knees or anything that seems to be gripping, because this is an unusual isolation that you're not used to. Or maybe when you make this movement throughout your day without thinking about it, somewhere else is trying to do all the work. So notice. And then bring your hands in slow circles, slow circles slowly down. And we're going to make your way to a tabletop position. So move and breathe in your tabletop once you get there. Inhaling tabletop, exhaling towards a child's pose shape. Moving with your breath, and remembering if you want to add in that gentle pause, that letting out of energy and experiencing the body without breath at the end of the exhale, go ahead and add it in throughout practice. Inhaling forward and exhaling back. Landing on your mat, so noticing, finding these familiar patterns that we take in class so that we can check in on what's going on in the physical body. We know what this feels like from day to day. We can know when things are a little different, when things are off. It also gives us a chance to know what the mind begins to do. What is the cognitive head doing? If this is a familiar, easy shape, is it easy for you to stay in the physical experience, or is it harder? And then move towards a tabletop position. Take your hands a little bit further away from the shoulders than perhaps you normally do. And we're going to work through the shoulders, intentionally moving through the shoulders. So no muscle engagement. You can hang out in the shoulder joints and you kind of look buckled. You can just hang out here, not really moving, not really engaging any muscles. I'm completely at ease through my arms, chest, and shoulders. Engaging, I can either fully engage and pull myself rounded, or I can find a neutral engaged, or I can even lower my chest and still be engaged in my muscles. So we're going to work through this. We're going to work through trying to find different muscles in the shoulders. So engage, not hanging out, but engage muscles. Engage and pull the chest as far up from the ground as you can possibly pull. And you want to feel like you're pulling from the base of your hands, pulling from your hands all the way up. Every muscle you can find. Pull, 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 pull. Keep the muscle engagement. Slowly bring your chest back to neutral. So really right between the shoulders. So engage. See if you can find the muscles of the chest. And then slowly lower the chest down. And then pull all the way up nice and slow. Try to keep the arms, shoulders, chest engaged. Up, 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 pull hard, pull higher. And then back in between the shoulders. Hold and engage. And then lower the chest. So this is a teeny, teeny, tiny, isolated movement. We're trying to find the muscles in our shoulders that make these movements happen. Pull back in between the shoulders and then all the way up. Watch for cramping or gripping in the neck. Watch for gripping in the lower back. And if you are taking it a lot into the low back, engage the legs by imagining you're pushing through from the glutes down through the knees into the ground. So you're pressing your knees or the tops of your feet into the ground to engage your base. Lower the chest. Draw the chest between the shoulders and then push it up as far as it can go. Slow, down, center, and then up. And then take your arms down to forearms. Engage your arms. You're imagining you're pulling your hands apart and elbows apart without letting them move. Watch for tension in the neck. And we're going to do that same movement. So pull the chest up as if you're trying to pull it between the shoulders. Lower it down, kind of in between the shoulders, and then see if you can lower it even further down without taking it into the low back or hanging out in the joints. 3 movements. Pull all the way up, middle, and then down. Small movement all the way up, middle, and down. Notice if you're holding your breath all the way up, middle, and down. And then bring it to neutral and take the left arm even with the shoulder. Place the hand down and then draw a little movement into the shoulder. Just feeling the shoulder, rolling the shoulder, maybe relaxing it a little. And then other side. Try not to buckle into this left shoulder. Make some movements on the right shoulder, a little circle, a little letting go. And then slowly lower all the way down to your stomach crocodile pose. One hand on top of the other, forehead down. Shimmy the hips, and what can you let go of? Find your breath. See if you can find that rolling breath experience. Rather than forcefully pulling air in and forcefully pushing air out, see if you can roll it in and roll it out, even when you're focusing on your breath. And then we're going to fire up our legs a little. Press the tops of our feet into the ground. So firmly press the tops of your feet into the ground. See if you can fire up the whole leg. So you want to fire up all parts of the leg by pressing the feet down into the ground. And then we're going to lock the feet down, so nice and strong in the legs. Then we're going to work with the muscles of the back. So this means if we're trying to fire up the thighs, we're not going to overuse the glutes and pull too much into the lower back. So this is the experience we're trying to have today. We're going to press the feet down into the ground. Watch for locking of the knees. You're going to just fire up the glutes and the thighs. And then we're going to inhale as we lift the shoulders. Exhale as we lower. Begin small. Inhale, lift. Exhale, lower. We want to watch for yanking the head up and pulling the head back. We want to watch for crunching in the spine. So we really want to have a muscular experience of getting strong and long in the back. So inhale, lift. Exhale, lower. Trying to keep the legs fired up. And if you come off the mat, if you go into the cognitive head, what happens in your movement? So when you notice yourself running away with your thoughts, what happens in your movement? Notice. So do you start to wiggle around and be a little flowy? Do you start to pull into the muscles of the neck and take the neck and the head in funny angles? Notice that this makes you prone to moving in ways that are unwise for your own muscles. That if you're not present with the muscles, though the body can move in many, many ways, we're prone to just moving in a way that we might not be ready for. Inhale up, exhale lower. You can add the pause. And then lower down, crocodile pose. Shimmy the hips and see if you can really, really soften the low body. So see if you can soften the glutes, the legs, maybe taking the feet up to the ceiling and slowly shuffling the legs side to side. See if you can loosen some more muscles. See what the experience of softness, the opposite experience of engaged. See what is present when you do this. Maybe there's some heat and energy in some of the muscles that we used. And then make your way to child's pose. Take a reset in child's pose, maybe coming to the fingertips and feeling like you're locking your hands into the ground and then pulling the rest of your body back from your hands. And then find down dog, warming up your down dog in whatever way feels right for you. In this moment, notice that each day might be different. The movements you would like to take can change. And then find the stillness of down dog, letting the crown of your head come to the ground, turning your world upside down. Long, slow breath. And then we're going to bend the knees deeply. Slowly bring them down towards the mat, engaging the legs. So nice and strong here. We're going to pull the knees towards each other and then pull the knees back. Trying to work through the legs only. Nice strong legs. Try not to move the hips around too much. We're working the legs, thinking about the inner thigh muscles pulling the knees together, and then the outer thigh muscles pulling the knees apart. And then look towards the hands and either float or step till your feet are up underneath the hips, forward fold. And find your block. Give yourself something to hold on to. Let the head, the crown of the head come towards the ground, and you can bring a nice deep bend into your knees and let the stomach find the thighs. Turning your world upside down again and noticing how hard it is to stay on the mat in moments of stillness. Sometimes the hardest poses in yoga are not the most complicated, but the ones where we are required to be still. Find your breath. And if you have your block, you're going to rest your fingertips on your block. If you don't, place your hands on your thighs, and we're just going to start to work through the legs a little bit. So we're going to peel up one heel at a time, little tiny amounts. We're just starting to find the muscles of the legs. So holding onto your block, you can pedal fast, you can pedal slow. We're just trying to lift, keep the hips steady, and just work through the legs. Locating the muscles of the legs. And then step your feet a little bit wider, and same thing, peel the heels up. Notice that it's slightly different to have your legs wider. Step your feet back in to about hip width. And we're going to work nice and slow, bringing one knee up at a time. So we're going to bring the left knee up towards the chest and hold it. So we're holding this leg up nice and engaged. Hold, breathe, lower, other side, right knee in and up. Hold, And breathe. Lower, switch. Now we're going to move side to side. So we're going to take an inhale as both feet are on the ground. Exhale as we draw one heel to the glute, one knee in. Inhale, center. Exhale, squeeze. Nice and slow. And then bring both feet down. We're going to work through the muscles of the back. So we're going to think about moving our shoulders with the muscles of the back from this position and noticing how hard it is to use the muscles of the back and not either entirely the thighs or entirely the glutes. So beginning with your hands in close to your chest and trying to think about the muscles of the back. We're going to lower the chest and pull it up, small movements. Exhale as you lower, inhale as you lift and pull the shoulders up. And really notice how much the legs want to do all this work. So you want to keep your legs and hips still, but you want to try and turn off the muscles and make this movement come from the muscles of the back. If you're ready to pump it up, you can take the arms out a little wider, make the torso a little heavier, make it a little more challenging. And then bring it back down. We're going to take a giant inhale as we rise up, arms overhead. Prayer to heart as we exhale 3 times. Inhale up. Exhale, prayer to heart. Hold your heart center. Notice what is going on in your base. See if you can soften around the knees, the low back, the shoulders. Inhale, prayer up overhead. Exhale, draw your prayer down through center and slowly return to your forward fold position. So we're going to be nice and engaged in the legs again, and we're moving to the next bit. Excuse me. So we're going to pull one knee up, and slowly send it backwards. Pull it up and send it backwards. Begin on the left, right, balance on the right leg, left leg up. Nice and slow. Begin slow. And notice how hard it is to balance if you don't stay with your mind on the muscles that are making this happen. Let the cognitive head think about the muscles that might be beginning to be burning. And then step the left foot back, move on to the right side. So we're going to bring weight onto the left, right knee comes up, and then step back, nice and slow. Up and step back. So we're trying to keep the legs super engaged, both legs engaged throughout this movement. And then step the right foot down. Inhale, arms up overhead. Exhale, prayer to heart 3 times. Inhale. Find your prayer heart and notice what is present. Inhale, prayer up overhead. Exhale, prayer down through center, forward fold. Hold. And either moving back into that same practice we just did, bringing the left knee in and stepping the left knee back nice and slow. Or if you're ready, you're going to take the torso up a little And we're going to start to hop through this. So we're going to start to work a little harder. So bringing the left knee up, step back, and then hop it up. Step back. Land light. Find both muscles controlled. Slow, controlled. Control your lift, control your land. And then land in high lunge. So find a high lunge. Find your hands of prayer. Check in on the low back, nice and soft in the low back. Breathe and hold. We're going to think about opening up muscles of the shoulders. Breathing in through an open chest. So bring our elbows in towards each other and then pull them out nice and slow. Slow as you can go without tension in the wrists. Pull the elbows open. So we're pulling open from the chest. We're not arching into the low back. Pull open, wide, wide, wide. Watch for tension in the neck. Breathe. Breathe and hold. Bring the shoulders back to neutral, arms out either side. We're going to bring the weight onto the right leg and slowly see if we can pop up to warrior three. So strong in the legs, lengthen from heel to crown of the head. Breathe and hold. If you go off the mat in the cognitive head, what happens to your balance? Are you holding your breath? Breathe. Slowly step the left foot back to mountain pose. Breathe. Inhale, arms up overhead. Exhale, prayer to heart. Hold, prayer to heart. Notice what is present physically. Feel your feet, wiggle your toes. Notice your low back, notice your shoulders. Bring all of your focus to where your hands touch your heart center. Find your breath. And then draw our prayer overhead with the inhale. Exhale, back down through center, lower, and make your assessment for where you want to be for this next practice. You're either lifting the right knee up and sending it back nice and slow, or we're going to pump it up. So bring the torso up and bring in a little hop. So hop, back, land. Nice and slow, working with the breath. So inhale long, exhale, hop. Both legs strong, land light. Focus on your feet, your legs, your muscles, your breath. Be present on this experience, not in the cognitive head, the thinking mind. And then wherever you're at, land in a high lunge. Find your solid base. Strong legs. Find your breath. Soften the low back. Soften the shoulders and the face. And this time we're going to feel chest open slightly differently. So bring the elbows together, pull the elbows apart, and then push the arms down. So we're going to pull back and push down. Pulling back with the muscles of the shoulders, pushing down and back the muscles of the arms. See if you can do this. So we're not squeezing from in between the shoulder blades. We're trying to find the muscles in the front of the chest, front of the shoulders. Breathe and hold. See if you can pull the shoulders open a little more. Breathe. And then return, hands to prayer. Hands can remain in prayer, come out to sides. Bring the weight onto the left leg, slow as you can. Pop up that back leg. This is my weaker side. Pull the heel away from you. Breathe and hold. Slowly step right leg forward. Inhale, prayer overhead. Exhale, prayer to heart. Prayer to heart, take a little step wide. So we're not going to full goddess legs, a little bit shorter than full goddess legs. Breathe, find your base. So we're going to work through that same kind of controlled movement, side to side from this position. Moving up. So we're going to bend into the right leg. Take the weight into the right leg and try and lift left toes up. Back to center, other side. Lift. So we're lifting, pulling up. Slow and controlled. Inhale, center, exhale, lift. Oof. Notice what happens when you're not focusing. So start to really feel this movement, and if you're ready, you're going to start to pop it up to a hop. So, what happens when you're not focusing? You wobble, you fall. This is not a mistake. This is not wrong. This is learning. This is getting to know your patterns, getting to know what happens, getting to know where the cognitive mind wants to go. Pulling up out of the ground. See how long you can remain engaged with your muscles. And then land goddess legs, knees down. Find your goddess, not you're sinking into the ground, hanging out in the joints goddess, but you're engaged goddess. Where can you hold lots of strength throughout the whole legs? Breathe and hold. Feel like you're pulling your knees open with the muscles of your legs, and then bring your hands on to your thighs without pushing hard, using them as guides. Lower one shoulder down to the midline and then back. So just moving through the upper arms and shoulders, trying to keep your base nice and solid. If you are pushing into your hands, try to push the legs, pushing into your legs. Try to push the legs back into your arms. So you have force going in both directions. Inhale, star pose, reach up long. Exhale, arms down. Turn your feet in parallel and give the muscles a shake. Inhale, arms overhead. Exhale, prayer to heart. Hold your prayer to heart. Notice what is present. Notice your toes, notice your knees, notice your low back. And then we're going to take a forward fold from here. All the hard work is done. So start to settle into slow and stretchy. The wider your legs are, the more you work the inner thighs. Closer together, the more you work the back of your legs. You can grab a block to make sure this stays out of the sacrum if you're prone to taking it into the lower back. If you also like to let a little tension come out of the head, you can rest your head on your arm. You can lower if you have the space to let your head come towards the ground. Start to feel your legs. Take this static, meaning still, or take some movement, some slow exploration, starting to settle in. Just slow and stretchy. And notice where the head goes when we start to slow down. What happens to the mind when you've been given permission to slow it down? Are you already starting to plan what happens when you step off the mat? And then ask yourself, if that is what you are doing, is that solving anything? So we're given the cognitive head, the thinking mind, as a tool. And if you are already planning and constantly planning for the future moment, is it actually resolving and solving anything in your presence, in your present moment? So from here, slowly bringing the heels in towards each other, toes out. Make your way down to yogi squat. So take it slow. You can rest on the block. Come down really, really, really slow. And once you get there, you can take this active by really pressing through the legs, pressing through the heels and pulling up with all of the muscles. Or you can take it passive and just sit in on the block, opening up. So find a little yogi squat. See which one's working for you today. Take some movement, take it static. And then slowly make your way down to a seated position. Take the legs out in front of you and shake them up. So shake the legs, wiggle the legs, loosen up. And then moving through the feet. So pressing the balls of the feet away from you and then pulling them back, just feeling the muscles of the feet. Taking some slow movement. And then some very, 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 very slow ankle circles. And back in the other direction. And then slowly down onto your back. Settle in onto your back. Find your hips on the ground. Bring your feet down, knees up. Let your head take some side to sides. And then we're going to take the legs up and try and loosen and shake. So we're trying to get the muscles to shake like jelly. Whichever way, shake them side to side or back and forth, little kicks. Trying to get the legs to wobble as much as possible. Loosen and soften, let them go. Think about somatic movement, loosening, softening. Think about releasing anything in the muscles that is held, that is ready to be released. Kick and loosen, soften. And then land the feet back down on the ground, knees up. Take a little side sway. Loosen through the low back and hips, soft. Soft, soft, soft. Letting your arms be wherever your shoulders are most comfortable. Pull your shoulder blades into the ground with whichever muscles you can find to pull the shoulder blades down. So pull them down. Maybe even imagine pressing them into the ground and notice which muscles fire up to make this movement happen. Try to keep the low back nice and soft. Maybe even give the hips a little wiggle to see if you can get it softer. Press them into the ground. And then think about bringing fresh breath in through across the muscles in the front of the chest. Maybe give the skull a little press at the ground, press into the ground. See if you can find the muscles of the neck. Really finding all those muscles that draw in and pull down and trying to find the opposite sensation. So trying to open up, breathe. Notice anything that may come up when you try to open up the chest. Notice some of these protections and feelings that our physical body might like to place here across the muscles of the chest. Take a deep breath in, and with the exhale, let everything go and see where everything lands. And as if you're trying to listen to the wisdom of your own physical body, tune in and notice where else there might be some gripping. So if you're trying to check in with every muscle group one by one, notice the toes, the feet, the knees and the hips, the muscles around the torso, particularly around the breathing or the digestive space. Maybe even noticing the sides of the rib cage. Maybe there's some gripping here and it feels like the rib cage doesn't expand quite enough. Notice, where are your holding patterns? And it's not that we're noticing them to judge them as right or wrong or where they may have come from. Notice that when you're asked to notice physical things, that the cognitive mind likes to give it a story. Oh, my foot curls this way because of this injury or this memory or this thing that happened. And try to just think about the muscles of the foot being curled, the experience of the muscles of the foot being curled up, being tight. Try not to let the cognitive mind, the thinking mind, be the boss, being the controller of the show, trying to have an experience without labeling, without language, just trying to find physical sensation. Maybe you have a toe that's always cramping. Can you feel those muscles? Can you find those muscles of the toe and only the toe and just feel them? What is present there? What kind of sensation can you feel? Can you feel the skin around those muscles? Can you feel the muscles in more singular parts? Can you make this smaller and smaller and smaller? So for example, if the toe is gripping, can you feel all of the muscles of the toe? And then can you start to feel the muscles? Maybe it's pulling, gripping also into the foot. Can you start to feel those muscles? Really pulling your focus into feeling and having an experience, fully into the physical experience. And then maybe you can even start to feel the energetic experience. If you have a toe that's always cramping and always tight, does it feel like there's energy getting through? Does it feel like your blood is flowing through easily? Can you have an energetic sensation? Can you start to really be present in that cramping space without trying to cognitively understand or label why it might be? Just be there. Experience it, notice it. And then begin to make your decision about where you want to be for your final resting pose. So whatever position works for you, it's a resting pose. A time to try and let all of the tension of the muscles sink into the ground and get as close to being a corpse, as free from stress and tension and cognitive way of being as possible. So we want to get into that automatic state. So without the cognitive head, our heart beats. Our heart does not need our thinking mind to control it. So it's an easy place to start to let go of that cognitive head. So the cognitive head is a tool. It is part of our experience. We're not trying to pretend it doesn't exist. We're trying to understand that it is only part of the story and that it may want to be the controller of the show, but trying to do that in itself is such a futile. It's an experience that's never going to happen. We cannot control everything. We cannot control basically anything. Life is just chaos and experience, and no matter how hard we try to control, it pretty much does what it's going to do anyway. So the way Our cognitive mind tries to control our past experiences, it tries to control our future experiences, and then it tries to control itself, which is this constant battle that's never going to be won. So one of the ways that we can start to pull ourselves out of that battle with our own head is to draw ourselves into experience and things that we can find easier to experience. So maybe you found that experience of looking for a muscle and trying that might be tight, might have an experience, a cramping, a holding pattern, whatever it is. And maybe you just want to rest there. Go ahead. See how long you can focus there. See how long it takes for the thinking mind to start to label things, and then just gently start to focus back in on the feeling, the sensation, the experience. Or if you want to think about something that is completely not controlled by our cognitive mind. So our breath is not necessarily controlled by our cognitive mind, but we can actually control it with our cognitive mind. Something that we can think of that is part of our whole life experience is our heartbeat. And though the cognitive head can affect our heartbeat, it's not so easy to control our heartbeat with the cognitive head. So start to think of a place where it might be easy for you to find your own pulse. And if you really do have to hold somewhere with a hand to really help you focus, go ahead, do that. Maybe you can bring all of your awareness right in and under the jaw and notice the sensation of your pulse right here. Maybe it's easier for you to find right in between in the groin space, up close to the top of the thigh. Maybe you can feel your heartbeat in your chest. Maybe that's an easy place for you to focus on. See if you can find a place where you can find your heartbeat. And don't try to hold on to the heartbeat. So notice that it may be very difficult to find. And the practice is not to find it, it's to notice when the thinking mind draws you back away from it. And one of the things that my own thinking mind does is it says, oh, there it is, there's the heartbeat. So notice that. Notice the journey, notice the experience. So we're trying to find focus on something that's away from the cognitive thinking mind. And we're trying to notice that the thinking mind just wants to be the boss. And that rather than fighting with it, we're just going to gently kind of laugh, kind of have an experience. Oh, that's what it does. There it is again. And then draw our focus gently, softly back. And the practice is not finding the heartbeat and having this magical experience and staying there forever and being in this Zen otherworldly experience. of practice is pulling yourself out of the swirling of the mind and towards something else and enjoying the experience of being present with something else, even if it is just for a moment. And if you have the time to take in your resting pose, please take some more time. Take as much time as your body needs. The concept of time is also a result of our cognitive world, our thinking world. So whenever you can, extend these periods of rest and practice and meditation to as long as you have, as long as you can take. Maybe even just for today, forgetting the clock and trying this practice, or trying some other meditative practice that's working for you right now. You really do need to finish up at the 60-minute mark. That's where we're at. So begin to bring yourself back onto the mat and taking your time, curling up in a ball in a fetal position. Notice what the thinking mind does when you start to do this familiar practice of wrapping it up. So, can you be present in the fetal position? Even though it's a familiar position we often come to, can you still stay present in physical sensation? Or are you already off the mat thinking about what is yet to come? Take a few more moments to practice present moment, to practice experiencing right now. And then make your way to a seated position. Bring your hands to prayer heart space. And this time, as we acknowledge the wisdom within, our body's wisdom, our intuition, our spiritual self, we're also going to acknowledge the thinking mind as a part of that whole self. And even in this moment, just for a moment, even if you can't give up the battle, maybe just for a split second, you can imagine being at peace and harmony with that thinking mind part of yourself. Surrender the battle. May we all know a bunch of peace, a whole lot of compassion, and the spark of life that exists within me sees and honors the spark of life within each of you. Thank you so much for joining us.